Yeah, I could hear you now. I think I just lost a bit of audio, that's all. But
Okay.
I'm all good. So,
Okay.
yeah, so welcome. Um, so let's just get right into it. So what happened when you. What was the experience you were talking about on YouTube that you wanted to talk about?
Okay. So it's a very, very long story. Um, I guess I will try to do it. Are you recording? Do you want like the full thing right now, or do you want like a synopsis before we start?
Um, yeah, I think synopsis would be really good.
Okay. Um, so basically, um, my grandfather witnessed UFO. My mother witnessed UFO as well, and she had an experience. Um, well, a few experiences. I had an experience where I woke up in the night and, well, it's pretty hard to summarize actually. Uh, and I had a number of experiences after that that
Okay.
were extremely strange. And my brother doesn't remember anything, but we basically moved to this house, um, and uh,
Was the house in the
when we
forest or was it in the city?
this house, honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to summarize. Each detail kind of leads to the next detail.
Yep, nah, let's just
Um,
go right through from the start then.
okay, I'll keep it in like chronological order. So, um, my grandfather and my mother, before I was born, um, they were out on a farm, and it was nighttime. And my mother's told me the story. It's an array of lights um, came up over the hill. It was like a spinning array of lights. And my grandfather was a very religious person, and he thought they were like demons or something. But my mom was with him, and they both saw that. And that was basically the first introduction of UFOs into my family's life. And then, so we lived in a very small town when I was a kid, and we decided to move to a slightly bigger town, but we were way, way out on the edges of the county, and we moved into this house, this yellow house. Um, Sorry, my voice is a bit shaky. I've not told this story in a long time. Okay, so we moved to this yellow house, and everything was fairly normal at first when we moved in there. And my mom started dating this guy, David, and so we went to the beach, and everything was normal on our beach trip. But uh, on the last day, we got up really early in the morning, and we were driving back to where we live, and I was just sitting in the back seat, and then suddenly I was waking up, and I was looking up through the rear window, and there was a large metallic sphere in the sky, and I hadn't even remember falling asleep. I was very young. I was probably the age of probably 9 or 10 or so. But I was waking up, and there was this giant UFO in the sky, And I looked at it for like a very long time. And then I told everybody there's like some kind of weird airplane in the sky because I hadn't been ever exposed to any UFO culture or anything like this. I didn't um, I didn't conceptualize the idea of a UFO or anything like that. My parents were like religious at the time, so
So you never saw
I
any UFO movies, alien movies, nothing like that.
nothing, nothing at all. And so I saw this thing and I thought it was like some weird airplane or something. But I thought it was interesting. But so I'm looking at this thing and my mom just basically looked at me. I remember this. She looked at me like she was more terrified than she'd ever been, and just kind of told me that I was just seeing things. And we drove away. And we went back to our home, and so David and her ended up getting married, and he became my stepdad. We all lived in this yellow house, and so one night my mom and I were watching Netflix, and we went to go make some popcorn. And this is back when Netflix came on, one of those in the mail, basically. So you just got it through the mail or whatever. So we were making popcorn. It was nighttime. And I look out the window, and there is a white orb outside. It was like white with like bluish edges, but it was just outside. We were in a yellow house, surrounded by cow fields in every direction. And we had two neighbors, but they were fairly far away. Oh my goodness. I don't know why, but every time I try and tell this story to someone, I feel like I'm shivering.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people get scared when they tell these stories, and they just can't help it.
Okay, I got a blanket around me now. All right, here we go. Okay, so I look out and there's an orb outside, and same thing happens. My mom looks at me like she knows what's up or something like that. She's like, just kind of like, I didn't really know this at the time, but she sort of hinted later that she would kind of she felt deeply that something weird was happening while we were living here, and she tried to like block it out of her mind. So she basically told me she would try to rationalize it, and she would just say, you're just saying things, whatever. And so we watched our movie. I don't remember anything strange happening that particular night. But then we kept, living there. And my brother, we had a bunk bed. And my brother kept waking up in the wrong room. So he would wake up sometimes on the floor or downstairs on the couch. Even if he was on the top bunk, he would wake up often in the wrong room. He would wake up on the stairs sometimes or out in the hallway. God damn it, I can't stop shaking. Okay. So, one night, I'm asleep. And I wake up. And, well, we had these windows. And the windows basically had two locks. So, one lock was just a normal window latch. But then if you wanted to open the window slightly, but still have it locked, there were these little pegs that would stick out and prevent the window from opening anymore.
Yep.
And I woke up to the sound of that the window made when those pegs were hit by the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I look out the window, and there's a gray alien outside of my window.
Okay. How tall
And
was he?
I could not tell the height from that window because only his upper torso was sticking out. But there was a green light that was like illuminating him. And okay, so all I remember happening was he looked at me and realized, I guess, that I was awake and kind of like did it like it was almost like a double take, but it was almost like he was like
Not sure.
just he was just kind of curious as to like what was going on. And he looked at me, and I heard sort of, I didn't really hear, it wasn't auditory, but I felt as if I'd been communicated the information of someone yelling, "Go back to sleep."
Okay.
And the moment he said that, there was like this sound that was, it was sort of like a very bassy sort of like sound. And I remember just waking up, and when I woke up, it was still dark out, but I woke up, and it wasn't like waking up from a nightmare. It was as though I had just woken up in the middle of the night and I could remember what had just happened, but I was just completely calm. And I went back to sleep. Oh my god, I don't know how I'm gonna stop drinking. God. And then, excuse me. After that event, well, actually, prior to that event, before that, I skipped part of this, and after that, all during that period of the age of around 10 years old to probably about 13, I would go to sleep at night, or I would go to bed, and the entire night, well, for about 4 hours every night, I would just stare at the door because for some reason I thought that someone was going to come in. And I don't know why, but it kept me up for years. And it was extremely terrifying. So that's probably only about 10% of the story.
Okay. Yeah, you keep going. Is that alright?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I keep shaking so bad. Like, it's not really, it's not extremely terrifying to tell. It just, like, oh my god. Excuse me. Okay. So, I had been losing a ton of sleep, and my mother, she had a degree in psychiatry, a master's degree. And so she basically kept asking me, like, why are you losing so much sleep? And I told her I was scared that someone was going to come in my room. And so eventually I was just losing so much sleep that she was like, okay, look, you've got to, figure out what's causing this. So um, I can't remember exactly how this went, but she had me sleep like out in the hallway because I was always afraid that someone was going to come from the hallway to my room. So I slept there for a while, and like the point of it was basically she wanted me to like face my fear and get over it.
Okay.
And so I was sleeping in the hallway, and one night I was sleeping in the hallway, and I heard the downstairs door open. And I, of course, freaked. I was like, oh my God, someone's in the house or something. So I jumped up. God, I can't stop shaking. Anyway, I got up. I um, I ran into my mother's room, and I woke her up and I said, the door opened. And she convinced me that I was having some kind of experience that was me facing my fears or something like that. So anyway, eventually she calmed me down. And so I decided to finally go back and go to sleep. So I opened her door, and I'm walking through it, and I get to the other side of the door, and it's daytime. I don't know what happened. It skipped
Wow.
to daytime, and I was so confused.
So what time was it when you heard the door opening the first time?
I don't remember exactly, but I usually went to bed at 10, and I think it happened about an hour later.
Okay. And then you walked up, and then you had a look, and then all of a sudden it was daytime.
Well, I went to my mom's room.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't.
Oh, sorry.
The hallway was upstairs, um, and the downstairs door had opened. So, and then, God, this goes on forever. Um, and then eventually, I sort of got over everything, but um, me and my mom kept having these weird. Um, we had these weird feelings to eat very specific supplements. I felt like I had to eat a supplement called selenium
Mm-hmm.
once every day, and I didn't even know what it did.
Oh, it's for
But
your
this
brain.
is it?
Yes.
I've looked into it a little bit now, but I don't like touching it, like the subject anymore. So I kind of like I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool.
But okay. Sorry, I feel like I could tell the story so much better if I wasn't like shaking so much. Okay. Hang on, I'm just going to like try and stop shaking for a second.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a strong feeling to eat selenium for some reason, and I would eat it every day. It was like for some reason it was in our cabinet. I don't know why. Nobody ever took it but me, but it was in there. And I took it every single day for a year. And if I forgot to take it, I would just have this like horrible feeling that like I needed to take selenium. And then I had this very strange um, sort of obsession with this. Have you heard of the concept of lucid dreaming?
Yep. Wait.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, where you're you're dreaming, so you can do whatever you want.
Yes, yes. So the typical lucid dream is you go to sleep, you start dreaming, and you basically become aware that you're dreaming, and then you can do whatever you want or whatever. Well, I had always wanted to do this, but I had this extremely weird urge to. So the normal way that you attempt to lucid dream is there's a couple ways, but you go to sleep. Maybe you set your alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning, or maybe you drink a bunch of water before you go to bed, so you have to get up and pee, and then that can sometimes trigger an awareness when you go back to sleep that you're dreaming. Or there's several different techniques that people use in order to accomplish it, to try and increase their chances of it happening. Well, for some reason, I knew that there was a much better way to do it, and I didn't read it online. I didn't read it anywhere. I just, for some reason, I knew that there was a completely different process that was, I had never heard of anybody doing it, but for some reason I just knew that it could be done. So I learned this insane skill over about the course of a year, and I honestly don't believe that it was just a natural thing that happened. I think for some reason that something wanted me to do this,
Okay.
which honestly, it sounds ridiculous.
So,
And
what was the trick you did?
okay, so over about the course of a year, each night, every night, I would go to bed, and I had figured out a technique that's very difficult to explain, where I would lay in bed and I would enter sleep paralysis without falling asleep. And from there, have you ever had sleep paralysis?
Yeah.
Okay. So from the sleep paralysis, I would just sit in it and calm myself.
Mm-hmm.
And after being in sleep paralysis for a few minutes, if I waited long enough and could keep myself calm and keep myself from coming out of the paralysis, because if you freak out, because you're paralyzed in your bed in the dark, very terrifying. I learned how to calm myself, and I could sit in that paralysis for as long as I wanted. And if you sit in it for long enough, you start to feel like you are sort of vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
And you would start to feel like you're vibrating so much that there's like an earthquake, or you just got launched out of a cannon. And for about 1 year, I would get to this part every night, but it would freak me out so much that I would wake up. But I just had this feeling that if I could sit through it all the way to the end, being paralyzed, vibrating, or feeling like I was vibrating, that something would happen. And finally, after about a year of dedication to this, I'm doing it, and suddenly I am vibrating and vibrating and vibrating, and then suddenly I'm in a lucid dream, and I never fell asleep. I just went straight from being fully awake to sleep paralysis to lucid dream. And the dream was this. The first thing I saw was I was riding a scooter on the road outside my house. And I rode it down the road. And I was so excited that I had finally figured out what this was all leading up to. I was absolutely thrilled that I had accomplished. I was fully lucid. I was fully awake, and I was in a dream. So I decided I wanted to fly. So I get off the scooter, I go off the road, and what's interesting about this is everything was in perfect detail. It was exactly as if I had been there. I could see every blade of grass. It was exceptionally flawless, and everything was in its right place. Nothing was, incorrect. Like the clock didn't read 13 o'clock, like some people do in dreams. So anyway, I walk out to the field by my house, probably about a half a mile away. And as I'm walking out there, I planned on jumping and just trying to attempt to fly and trying to test out the physics of this lucid dreaming or whatever. So I look down to my right on the ground, and there is a perfect circle of daffodils, which are like these yellow flowers. But they're in, well, an almost perfect circle. They're just like, I don't know, it's like they were planted on purpose or something. It's very strange. So anyway, I jump up in the air, and I actually do jump about 40 feet up into the air. And then I kind of get vertigo. I kind of get scared that I'm going to fall. And so the moment that I become scared that I'm going to fall, I start falling. And I hit the ground, and I wake up. And I was ecstatic. I was extremely excited about this. It was just, I had done something that I have never heard of anyone doing. I had figured out some way to stay awake while my body fell asleep. And I know I probably could teach people how to do this. But here's what really just made me question everything. So the next day, I go out to where I had been, out in that field, and I look down, and there is a perfect circle of daffodils on the ground.
So it was like you were seeing exactly what is real in real life in your dream.
Yes.
So it could have been what is that thing? Remote. Have you heard
Remote
of that
viewing.
thing? Remote viewing.
Yes, remote viewing.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's.
I actually found out about remote viewing years after I had this experience, and I've not really looked into it as much as I honestly would like to. I've wondered if what I have been doing is the same thing as remote viewing, but I'm unsure.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds pretty similar because, the daffodils. I mean, you didn't even know that they were there.
Yeah, that's what's curious. And I've had several other experiences where I've seen things in the dream that turn out to be real in the real world.
Okay. How many times have you remote viewed
Well,
after figuring that out?
here's what I think. So I think that when you remote view, you're actually just lucid dreaming. But I think that in the state of awareness that you go into when you are lucid dreaming, you somehow have access to information about the real world. Because I've done this process several times, and sometimes I'll end up in a place that I recognize. Like the first time I did it, I was right outside my house. But most of the time, I end up in just a random place that I've never seen before. And for instance, one of them was very expensive house out in the middle of nowhere. But it looked like Iceland or something. And I've had ones that have been in an underground uh, cave that was flooded with water. I've had one in a sidewalk that I recognized from somewhere, but I wasn't sure where. But most of the time, I don't actually end up in any place that I can go to confirm if there's anything there. But there have been occasions where it has been. Like once I went into my neighbor's apartment and he had bought like um, it's like sort of like this lamp shaped like a banana, and it was on the table. And I'd never been to my neighbor's house. And then it was like months later, he put this lamp that was shaped like a banana in his windowsill.
Uh,
And I don't know. It's just such an obscure object that it would seem impossible to guess.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's either you either like manifested it into reality, or you you saw reality for what it was in your lucid dream.
I think that I just saw reality for what it was in my dream.
Yeah. So have you ever seen any aliens whilst you were lucid dreaming?
Yes, well, sort of. There was one experience that I had. It's actually the it was actually the one I was talking about before, the expensive mansion one. So um, I had gone into sleep paralysis, went into the dream, and I was in this expensive house, and for some reason I decided to put my hand through the wall, and I put my hand through the wall. Well, sorry, I'm not telling this right. Okay, so at first, when I went into the lucid dream, I was just in this room, and I had no idea what the rest of the layout would be, but I was just in this room with sort of like concrete walls. It's very odd. But I decided to put my hand through the wall. And I put my hand through the wall, and when I put my hand through the wall, I realized it was like, oh, I can go through the wall, and then I fell through the floor.
Oh,
It's it's weird. Like the lucid dreaming physics are kind of like that. It's like if you decide that physics are one way, it'll start acting that way. But the dream kind of like bounces back whatever you give it. So like if you're confident in what you do, you'll have a good experience. But if you start to get like uneasy or something like that, you'll start failing. You'll fall over, or you'll slip, or something that you something fictional that you manifested in the dream. Like once it was like a vine that I manifested, and I got scared that I was gonna miss the next vine, and then instead of missing the next vine, the vine just disappeared when I started to question it. So anyway, I fell through the floor, and I fell through the floor. And then that's when I realized that I was in this mansion because there was a window on the floor that I fell into, and I looked out. And there was this beautiful sky, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but I started to wake up, and as I was waking up, I was back in my bed and I was still in sleep paralysis, and there was an alien in my closet, and I was still paralyzed, and I was so terrified. But I'm fairly sure that that one was just a sleep paralysis dream.
Yeah.
Because it's weird, like there's this. I've probably gotten to the halfway point on the story, and in the next, in the continuation of the story, there's events where I become paralyzed that I can tell is not sleep paralysis because it feels completely different. And also in sleep paralysis, I can move my eyes, but in this other form of paralysis that I've experienced,
Is that
my
the
eyes are
abduction?
yes, sort of. Although the story that I was about to tell, I don't believe they abducted me. I think that they came to my house or my apartment that I was living in and just put me to sleep and did something to me there. Okay, sorry. I really have to pee, so I'll pee and I'll tell you the rest.
All right.
Okay. I've got my heat like turned up way high now, so I've like can stop shivering. It's like 70 degrees in my house, but like it's usually fine, but I don't know why, but whenever I tell this story I get really cold. Okay. I'm trying to think if I should tell you the stories about my old apartment or if I should go to my mom's side of the story of her version of events at the Yellow House when we were kids.
Yeah, I think you should go into your mum's side of it.
Okay. So I didn't find this out till years later, but me and my mom had met at a shop that sells pho, which is a type of Vietnamese soup. And I asked her, did you ever have any weird experiences at that Yellow House? And she said she did. She said that me and my brother were at our dad's. So we weren't at the house. And she decided to watch a movie. And my stepdad wasn't there, so she was all by herself. Just a fair bit of warning. This is extremely cliche, what happens. But she said she was watching her movie, and all the windows flooded with light. And then the next thing she remembers is that her movie was over, but she couldn't remember what had happened in the movie. And so she got up and all of the all of the glass surfaces, like windows, and I don't know why, but the bathroom mirror had been covered in this gelatinous substance.
Okay.
And she said she was so terrified that she called someone to get her a prescription of Xanax for 1 month so that she would be able to work, because she worked at a really nice school at the time as a counselor for kids, and she was like she was in charge of all the other counselors, and she said she would have lost her job if she didn't take something, because she was so freaked out that she thought she was going to go crazy. And she said that she got the impression that whoever had taken her had taken her eggs. And she said that she had the impression that most of her eggs were gone, and that she was gonna basically go through menopause early or something like that.
Okay.
But she said that she had the impression, or just the feeling, that they had taken all of her eggs. And she said that she had been having very strong feelings that someone was taking her during the night very often. And here's the thing about this. Me and my mom both came to this conclusion independently. We never discussed it when we were living at that house, because I was a child. She didn't want to scare me. She never talked about it with me until I was grown up and moved out of that house, and was on my own, and several years had passed. We both had come to this conclusion completely independently from each other. And she said that it was causing problems in her marriage because she was married to my stepdad. And she said one night she was out on the porch smoking a cigarette, and she said it was like a cylinder that was made out of something like what the sun would be made out of. It was like a glowing ball of fire. Had just flew all across the field right in front of her. And she said that she had told my stepdad about this, and had kept telling her that she was having these weird feelings that aliens were doing something to her. And my stepdad had started to get angry with her because he thought that she was partially making it all up, or partially, just, he said, you need to stop, thinking about this. You need to just let it go and just not talk to me about this, because he just, he thought she was basically crazy, and
So
he was
slack.
basically like, he was not accepting of it. He did not like it. And he just, he would basically, sometimes he would make fun of her for it, and he was just completely doubtful about what she said, until one night he had a dream that aliens had come into his room and taken him into a disc-shaped UFO and had done a surgery on his head
Mm-hmm.
and brought him back, and from that point on, he did not question my mother ever again, because when he woke up, his head actually hurt. Not like he had a headache, but like his skull hurt
Okay.
in the exact area that they had supposedly done something.
Yeah. Do you reckon he got an implant or some sort of um,
I
just
don't know. I
procedure?
don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. But he, for some reason, we talk about it every now and then now, like present day. He says whatever it was, he thinks that it was at least good. Like he doesn't think he does. He said he never got the impression that. Well, he said at first, he was terrified, obviously, but once he came to terms with it, he didn't have the impression that it was something negative. He said that whatever it was, he believed that it was to help him in
Okay.
some way.
Okay.
So then we go. So this is after I moved out of the house, but before I had ever met my mom at the, the Vietnamese soup place. This is probably about the age of 21, 22. I think I discussed my mom's side of the story when I was around 23 or 24. So, um, my brother and I. Now, my brother doesn't remember anything, doesn't like when people talk about it. And so I won't discuss it with him ever because he doesn't like it. But me and my brother became roommates. I had roomed with somebody else before, but he wanted to move out of the house because he was turning 18 or 19, I can't remember. But he was getting to the age where he wanted to move out, so we ended up becoming roommates, and we got an apartment, a very small one, in the middle of the city. And it was this apartment, when we lived there, it was like in the middle of the city, like surrounded by just metropolis. I mean, it was smack dab in the middle of the city we live in. So, it's not like the classic rural area that people anticipate, paranormal things happening at.
Yeah.
And we lived here. We lived there about a year, and then I had been having these insane migraines, just insane migraines, like that would last for over 24 hours. That were just unbelievable. And I mean, I can't even describe what it was like. But one night, usually these migraines, the way they would occur is it would be a small pressure that would turn into a headache over the course of several hours, and then after about 7 or 8 hours, it would be full on migraine. And it was a very slow process every time. Well, one night I got off work, I came home, and the instant I walked in the door, I had a full on migraine. It just happened instantaneously. And I was like, what in the world is going on? So I immediately tried to fall asleep before the pain got too bad because it's just easier if you just go to sleep and sleep it off if you can, because they're not all 24 hours, but some of them are just 7 or 8 hours, and you can just try and sleep through it if you can get to sleep fast. So I just decided to go right to bed. And I actually went to bed so fast that I didn't even take my clothes off. I took my shoes off, but I still had my clothes on. And I woke up the next day. I fell asleep super fast. Like, I fell asleep incredibly fast. But I woke up the next day, and there was my blood on my shirt, and there was also blood on my door frame. There was a fair amount of blood on my shirt. I mean, it wasn't like soaked, but I mean, it was like you spilled some ketchup on your shirt, and like you spilled like, pretty big dollop of it on there. And there was also a tiny drop of blood on my door frame. And I was just like, what the fuck? What in the fuck is going on?
There was no other blood like on your body.
It was on my shirt because I had fallen asleep in my clothes. Well, no, there was nothing on my body. No, no. Sorry, I didn't realize that was what you're asking. No, there was nothing on my body. It was just on my shirt, but it was definitely dried blood. I mean, it wasn't like hot sauce. I I've I've cut myself before and like gotten it on my clothes, and I've ruined a shirt from staining with blood before, because I used to do work that sometimes you would accidentally, you know, uh, cut yourself. There was a lot of sharp stuff at the job I worked, but I knew what it looked like, and it's not the same as spilling hot sauce or ketchup or anything. It's like it has a distinct stain.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to make of that. I was like, I just had no idea. And then the entire rest of that week, I had been, I had my main job, but I was trying to get into a different field. I wanted to get into programming, so I was trying to learn how to program, and I always did it at night because it's just easier to do it at night, because we had upstairs neighbors, downstairs neighbors, and side neighbors. So if I did it at night, it would be quiet. Well, the whole rest of that week, I would be working on some kind of programming project, and somehow I would just randomly fall asleep, and I would wake up, and it was weird because my project, like, I would be typing something for this project, and when I would wake up again after falling asleep, it would be like mid-word. I would have half a word typed out, and then it just stops. But anyway, I would randomly fall asleep and not remember falling asleep, but I would wake up and I would be in this very weird paralysis. So it did feel kind of like sleep paralysis, but I couldn't move my eyes, and it would feel as if there was like, it would feel as if there was a spinning wheel inside of my lower abdomen, and I would actually like sort of, it was almost like I could flex a muscle or something, and the wheel would start spinning, and it made a slight noise.
Okay.
That was a very interesting noise. But I would go into this paralysis, and it was extremely strange of an experience. I would have this feeling that there was some kind of like spinning something inside of my lower abdomen, and I could control the rate at which it spun. And it was extremely weird, but this kept happening for several nights in a row. And on one of the nights, I wake up in this paralysis, and unlike sleep paralysis where I can move my eyes freely, I I can move my eyes in this paralysis, but they move at like 1 mile an hour. They're virtually frozen, but I can try and flex the muscles in my eyes to move, and they will, like snail's pace, scan across my field of vision. And so when I wake up in the sleep paralysis after randomly falling asleep in coding, and this is all 1 week. I had the experience where I woke up with blood on my shirt. This is the same week. All of these experiences are in the same week. I wake up and I have the wheel sensation, and I try to move my eyes, and over the course of like 2.5 minutes, my eyes finally get to the window, and I see the top of the head of a very large head. I can't see the eyes, but I can just see the top of the head, and it was like brownish grayish, very leathery skin. And I had a very good view of it. It was I studied it for a minute, but what was so weird to me about that experience is that it was as if I was just seeing like my uncle outside or something. Like it was not. I did not even
So he was
really
familiar to you at that time.
apparently, like I didn't recognize him, but I just it didn't seem weird. It didn't seem unusual. It just seemed perfectly normal.
And you were completely calm?
Yeah, I did not even care. I just looked at it and I was like, oh, that. I remember I said something like, oh, it's an alien, and I just looked at his head, and I was like, oh, I can finally like kind of like see what his head looks like in detail,
Yeah.
and like,
That's
and
completely different to sleep paralysis.
yeah, it was not like any sleep paralysis experience I've had, especially because during normal sleep paralysis, I never have this feeling of a wheel or some spinning object. Um, did you ever have a toy as a kid that was like, it would be like two sort of egg-shaped magnets, and that you could throw them up in the air, and they would magnetize toward each other, and they were made out of metal, so they would make this sound. Did you ever have that toy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, it sounds kind of like um okay, have you ever heard somebody play a song on one of those Tesla coils?
No,
You know that
no.
it's like a
The electric
it's
coils.
yeah, it's like an electric coil. You know how like if you turn on an electric coil, like a Tesla coil that actually has electricity in the air, not in any wires or anything, it makes a very loud sound. That's like
Yeah.
a the wheel sounded like that.
Okay.
And I can't describe the sound. I can't describe why it felt like it was spinning either. The only way that you could know would be to experience it yourself. There's no words for what it felt like. But I think this is the last story, but I'll probably leave this interview and be like, oh, I forgot to tell him, this other part, because there's so much to this that I can't remember all of it half the time.
Yeah.
But okay, so one night I got home from work, and this was probably a month or two after this whole series of waking up and being paralyzed and seeing the alien out the window. This one was very interesting. Um, and this really has to do with my brother, who I was rooming with at the time. So um, I get home from work. I go to get on my computer after I think I ate something or something like that. But I go to get on my computer, and for context, me and my brother had been living here for a while. We both worked night shift, and it was summertime, so we weren't in school, so we didn't have anything to do. I don't know if colleges are the same down there, but we got summers off from college down here. It's probably the same, I imagine. Um, but yeah, we didn't have school, and we both had night jobs. So every night we had been staying up till like 5 in the morning doing projects or like gaming with each other. We were just really close, and like we just hung out, and we would hang out all night long. We loved it. So um, I get home, and my brother is already in his room, and I figured he was just, maybe just hanging out in there for a little bit. I figured he probably hadn't gone to bed or anything like that. But I eat something, I go to get on my computer, and the internet's out. And so I'm just trying to, I think I'm trying to like finish what I'm eating or something like that, but I just wanted to watch some like YouTube videos or something just to like calm down from my day of work. And so the internet's out, and I check the router, it's out, and like it's not flashing like the way it's supposed to. So I try to get on my phone and use the data, you know, because I had unlimited data, so I could just watch YouTube on there. So I try to use my phone and make sure that the data is on and everything, and it's not trying to connect to Wi-Fi or anything. The data's out. I can't get the internet on my phone through that either. And I was like, wait, the internet and the data are both simultaneously out?
Yeah.
What are the fucking chances?
Yeah.
So I tried to just make a call just to test it. I called my work, which nobody was there, but it still rings if you call after they leave. It always rings. I try to make a call. It wouldn't even ring. It wouldn't even make me let the call. It said service not available on my phone. And I was like, what in the fuck is going on? So I go and I'm like, I assume that my brother is still awake because I can see the light on under his door. And I go to knock on his door. And as I'm trying to knock, I just get this strong feeling. And like my fist is like halfway up in the air
Whoa.
getting ready to knock. And I'm like, I should just go outside for like 5 minutes.
Why?
I don't know. But I was just like, I guess I'll just go outside for a few minutes. And I just walk outside and just sit out there, and I stand, not sit, I stand out there and just do nothing. And like the whole time I was just like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? What
Yeah, that's fucked up.
what in the fuck am I doing? So then I'm like, okay, suddenly I'm like, okay, it's okay to go back inside now. So I go back inside, and I just sit there for 20 minutes. I get on my computer and just start programming because there were some projects I could do without the internet. And I'm programming and doing this stuff. And then suddenly I'm like, I need to go outside for 5 minutes, and then the internet will turn back on. I don't know why I knew the internet would turn back on if I came back outside, but I go back outside, I wait 5 minutes, do nothing, go back in, I get back on my computer, the internet's out for about 10 seconds, and then my data, the internet, and my cell service all came back on at the same time.
Shit. So you
And the
reckon
next
they mind
day,
controlled you?
yeah, I don't understand why I did it, but the next day I talked to my brother, and he was like, "Yeah, I got super tired last night, so I went to bed before you got home." But his light was still on until like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
It's just very odd.
So
Yeah.
did he turn the light off when he went to bed, or did he leave it on?
Well, I mean, if he's going to sleep, he always turns the light out.
Because when you're super tired, sometimes you fall asleep with the light on.
That could happen. Yeah, that could be the case. I've never seen him do it, but it's definitely plausible.
But yeah. So have you guys checked yourselves with any bug detectors or anything like that, or your mother?
What do you mean bug detector?
Because I saw on a video with Laurel McDonald, she was checking the room before she did a regression.
Oh yeah, I
So
actually know exactly the video you're talking about. She's talking about regressing a guy named John.
yeah, and he
Yeah,
had sex with him. The alien had sex, not Laurel.
yeah, yeah. I love that video. It's
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's from. It starts with a V though, I think. Vice. Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
they've
I
actually
love.
found implants on people. So yeah,
Yeah, I know. What do you know of any specific case or something?
yeah,
I like studying stuff.
yeah. This guy, I think he's like Alaskan. I think it's Alaska, and
Hmm.
he took a implant out of his leg. But before they took it out, they checked it with a radio frequency detector, and the doctor
Oh, and it
was
was emitting
detecting it,
something.
and then he detected it on that leg, and they could see it registered, but the other one didn't. So when they took it out, they actually did find an implant in there, and the doctor was, flabbergasted. He couldn't understand why there was an implant.
That's very interesting. Is that the same doctor? Is it the doctor that has a really low kind of like mumbly voice?
No, he seemed pretty normal guy, and he's not a doctor who specifically takes out implants. He's just like a normal doctor.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm thinking of someone else then. There's like uh I remember a case that's actually very similar to that case, which is interesting. Um, and this is the only implant that I've ever heard of being taken out, but this guy, um, he wrote a book actually called Alien and the Scalpel, but more recently, this is years after he wrote this book, he um, took out an implant and they sent it to a lab, and they actually discovered that it had carbon nanotubes in it, which
Whoa.
are it's a recent technology that just cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to make even a gram of this stuff.
Yeah. So it's advanced technology.
Yeah, that
Wow.
one I thought that was very compelling. I'll have to look into the one that you're talking about, emitting a radio frequency. That's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it for this interview, and I really, really appreciate you coming and talking to me about all of this. I know it's like really, really hard. It's nothing that normal people deal with in their everyday life, and I couldn't imagine it happen. I could imagine it, but I wouldn't want it to happen to me. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like honestly half the reason I even did this is because I just not very many people really want to hear the story. I mean, and it really just feels like I don't know. It feels kind of lonely to just not really have anybody to talk about it with. So I appreciate it.
It's alright, it's alright. And I do know of a group of abductees on
Hmm.
Facebook, and it's just not like those usual UFO pages where everyone's talking crap. This is
Yeah.
like really informative stuff. A guy called Mantis Hunter, he's in charge of it, and he knows his stuff quite well. And lots of people, at least 100 abductees on that group page. So, oh, I just remembered you're not on Facebook.
Yeah, I don't. But you said it's called Manus Hunter.
That's the guy who runs it. That's his Facebook name, Mantis Hunter, and he's got a praying mantis alien on his profile. But
Oh, nice.
his group is called I think it's called Alien Abduction Research Community and Support Group.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I've thought about joining something like that. But I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's like on some level, I really want to like talk to other people who are in a similar situation. But on another level, I'm like, I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to touch it. I don't even want to. I just want to pretend it doesn't exist. So it's kind of like a battle between those two um, sort of feelings, I guess.
the lady that I talked to, interviewed the other day, she's on it,
Hmm.
and she loves it. You know, she said it was very good for her healing. So
Is that the one that the video that I watched the premiere
yeah,
channel?
yeah, that's the one.
Okay, okay. I really like that interview. I really wish more people would do interviews about this. It's hard to find stuff. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for interviewing me.
It's alright. Alright. Oh, well, pray that everything goes good, and yeah, everything. No more aliens. So hopefully,
Yeah, I don't know. I I don't know how it's gonna go, but I guess we'll see.
well, maybe check for implants because I think that's how they track
Wait,
you.
how do you check exactly? Like,
Um,
um,
so I got the app I downloaded. It's called Bug Detector.
bug? And it works on your phone?
Yeah, and so when you move it towards like something that's emitting a radio frequency, electrical signals and stuff, it the meter goes up, so it goes up in digits. So it might go from 50 to 70, and once it gets around 70 or 72, it starts to vibrate and go crazy like.
Oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah,
will have to do that.
yeah, it's
That's
pretty
yeah.
fun.
I guess because your phone has like it's got an antenna on it, so it can receive those types of signals. That's genius. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll check that out.
All right, you have a good one, mate.
You too. Thanks for interviewing me. I appreciate.
That's all good.